The chair she sat in like a burnished throne glowed on the marble where the glass held up by standards wrought with fruited vines, from which a golden Cupidon peeped out. Another hid his eyes beneath his wing.
You are listening to the voice of T.S. Eliot, reading an excerpt from The Wasteland, a page from this afternoon's edition of Anthology. The finest poetry recordings we've heard is the Columbia LP album Pleasure Dome. On Anthology last week, we played for you selections from North and South, read by the poet Elizabeth Bishop. This afternoon, we'll bring you two more highlights from the album. First, an American-born English poet, T.S. Eliot. Secondly, a St. Louis-born Brooklyn poet, Marianne Moore. T.S. Eliot went to live in London after his graduation from Harvard and has since become a British subject. Winner of the Nobel Prize in 1948, he is generally regarded as the most influential living poet and critic. The Wasteland, his most famous poem, has achieved the stature of a modern classic. Its grand theme is the contemporary sense of doom, flecked by hints of possible salvation. This afternoon, we're to hear Mr. Eliot reading from Part 2 of The Wasteland, a game of chess which compares the checkmated relations of two pieces, an upper-class lady and her shadowy lover, I, with those of two pawns, the lower-class Lil and her recently demobilized husband, Albert. And here's Mr. Eliot.
The chair she sat in like a burnished throne glowed on the marble where the glass held up by standards wrought with fruited vines, from which a golden Cupidon peeped out. Another hid his eyes beneath his wing. Doubled the flames of seven-branched candelabra, reflecting light upon the table as the glitter of her jewels rose to meet it from satin cases poured in rich profusion. In vials of ivory and colored glass, unstoppered, lurked her strange synthetic perfumes, unguent, powdered or liquid, troubled, confused, and drowned the sense in odors. Stirred by the air that freshened from the window, these ascended, enfattening the prolonged candle flames, flung their smoke into the lacriaria, stirring the pattern on the coffered ceiling. Huge seawood fed with copper, burned green and orange, framed by the colored stone, in which sad light a carved dolphin swam. Above the antique mantel was displayed, as though a window gave upon the sylvan scene, the change of Philomel by the barbarous king so rudely forced. Yet there the nightingale filled all the desert with inviolable voice, and still she cried, and still the world pursues, jug, jug, to dirty ears. And other withered stumps of time were told upon the walls. Staring forms leaned out, leaning, hushing the room enclosed. Footsteps shuffled on the stair. Under the firelight, under the brush, her hair spread out in fiery points, glowed into words then would be savagely still. My nerves are bad tonight. Yes, bad. Stay with me. Speak to me. Why do you never speak? Speak. What are you thinking of? What thinking? What? I never know what you are thinking. Think. I think we are in Rat's Alley, where the dead men lost their bones. What is that noise? The wind under the door. What is that noise now? What is the wind doing? Nothing again. Nothing. Do you know nothing? Do you see nothing? Do you remember nothing? I remember those are pearls that wear his eyes. Are you alive or not? Is there nothing in your head? But oh, that Shakespearean rag, it's so elegant, so intelligent. What shall I do now? What shall I do? I shall rush out as I am and walk the street with my hair down, so. What shall we do tomorrow? What shall we ever do? The hot water at 10, and if it rains, a closed car at 4, and we shall play a game of chess, pressing lidless eyes and waiting for a knock upon the door. When Lil's husband got demobbed, I didn't mince my words. I said to her myself, hurry up, please, it's time. Now Albert's coming back. Make yourself a bit smart. He'll want to know what you done with that money he gave you to get yourself some teeth. He did, I was there. You have them all out, Lil, and get a nice set, he said. I swear I can't bear to look at you. And no more can't I said, and think of poor Albert. He's been in the army 4 years. He wants a good time. And if you don't give it him, there's ours will, I said. Always there, she said. Something of that, I said. Then I'll know who to thank, she said, and give me a straight look. Hurry up, please. It's time. If you don't like it, you can get on with it, I said. Others can pick and choose if you can't. But if Albert makes off, it won't be for lack of telling. You ought to be ashamed, I said, to look so antique, and her only 31. I can't help it, she said, pulling a long face. It's them pills I took to bring it off, she said. She's had 5 already and nearly died of young George. The chemist said it would be all right, but I've never been the same. You are a proper fool, I said. Well, if Albert won't leave you alone, there it is, I said. What you get married for if you don't want children? Hurry up, please. It's time. Well, that Sunday Albert was home. They had a hot gammon. They asked me in to dinner to get the beauty of it hot. Hurry up, please. It's time. Hurry up, please. It's time. Good night, Bill. Good night, Lou. Good night, May. Good night. Ta-ta. Good night. Good night. Good night, ladies. Good night, sweet ladies. Good night. Good night.
Our second poet this afternoon is Miss Marianne Moore, who just this week made banner headlines in the book department of every major New York newspaper with her translation from the French of the beautiful tales of La Fontaine. Miss Moore, as we mentioned, was born in St. Louis, but moved east to attend college at Bryn Mawr. Upon her graduation, she first taught shorthand to Indians. Then, for a longer period, was librarian at the Hudson Park branch of the New York Public Library. From 1925 to 1929, she edited the distinguished literary review, The Dial. She's the author of selected poems, What Are Years, and Nevertheless, from which we'll hear a short selection this afternoon. The poem is called In Distrust of Merits, and is considered to be one of the finest American poems on the theme of the late war. Marianne Moore.
Strengthened to live, strengthened to die for medals and positioned victories, they are fighting, fighting, fighting the blind man who thinks he sees who cannot see that the enslaver is enslaved, the hater harmed. O shining, O firm star, O tumultuous ocean, lashed till small things go as they will, the mountainous wave makes us who look no depth, lost at sea before they fought. O Star of David, Star of Bethlehem, O black imperial lion of the Lord, emblem of a risen world, be joined at last, be joined. There is hate's crown, beneath which all is death. There's love, without which none is king. The blessed deeds bless the halo. As contagion of sickness makes sickness, contagion of trust can make trust. They are fighting in deserts and caves, one by one, in battalions and squadrons. They are fighting that I may yet recover from the disease myself. Some have it lightly, some will die. Man's wolf to man, and we devour ourselves. The enemy could not have made a greater breach in our defenses. One piloting a blind man can escape him. But Job, disheartened by false comfort, knew that nothing can be so defeating as a blind man who can see. O alive who are dead, who are proud not to see, O small dust of the earth that walks so arrogantly, trust begets power, and faith is an affectionate thing. We vow, we make this promise to the fighting, it's a promise. We'll never hate black, white, red, yellow, Jew, Gentile, untouchable. We are not competent to make our vows. with set jaw. They are fighting, fighting, fighting. Some we love whom we know, some we love but know not, that hearts may feel and not be numb. It cures me. Or am I what I... Some in snow, some on crags, some in quicksands, little by little, much by much, they are fighting, 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 that where there was death, there may be life. When a man is prey to anger, he is moved by outside things. When he holds his ground in patience, 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 that is action or beauty, the soldier's hardest armor for the fight. The world's an orphan's home. Shall we never have peace without sorrow, without pleas of the dying for help that won't come? Oh, quiet form upon the dust, I cannot look, and yet I must. If these great patient dyings, all these agonies and wound-bearings and bloodshed can teach us how to live, these dyings were not wasted. Hate-hardened heart, oh, heart of iron, iron is iron till it is rust. There never was a war that was not inward. I must fight till I have conquered in myself what causes war, but I would not believe it. I inwardly did nothing. Oh, Iscariot-like crime. Beauty is everlasting, and dust is for a time.
Marianne Moore reading In Distrust of Merits from her book of poems, Nevertheless. There has always been an active exchange of radio fare between America and England. And this afternoon, we're particularly delighted to have not only a guest program on our program, but a guest program which is actually Anthology's counterpart on the BBC in London. Called Time for Verse, the program is a poetry notebook edited and introduced by Patrick Dickinson. The readers you'll hear are Jill Balkin and C. Day Lewis. So, through the generosity of the BBC, we take you now, transcribed of course, to London, in time to hear